I should have walked out of that hotel lobby the second I saw her reflection in the glass. That would have been the smart thing to do. Turn around, call a cab, go home, pretend I didn't see anything. But I didn't. I just stood there like a statue, staring at the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, laughing in that tight little way she did when she was nervous, clutching onto the arm of some guy with hair too perfect for a grown man and a scarf like he was auditioning for a Paris fashion show. The worst part? She didn't look guilty. Not even surprised. Just happy. Relaxed, even. Like she was finally allowed to breathe. It wasn't a stakeout. I wasn't following her or playing detective. I was supposed to be picking up my brother-in-law from a conference at the Hilton downtown. The roads were a mess, and he's useless with Uber, so I agreed to do it. Just a boring favor. I walked in, scanned the room for him, and there she was, my wife of 9 years, the person I still cooked breakfast for on Sundays. Wrapped around some real estate clown like she didn't have a husband or a kid or a house full of shared furniture and bills with both our names on them. I knew the guy too, not personally, but he was some boutique property investor in town, the kind who shows up to charity events and winks at bored wives while their husbands refill the wine. I never liked his type, all polish and zero spine. She hadn't noticed me yet. She was too busy brushing lint off his coat like a good little partner. My hands were clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I took a step back, then another. I found a chair near the entrance and just sat there, half hidden behind a potted plant like a schoolboy hiding from a teacher. I felt sick. Not just in the gut, but deep, like my body had finally caught on to what my brain refused to accept for months. You know what's messed up? It wasn't even the first time I had doubts. A few weeks before, I came home early from work, an early closing at the office, nothing dramatic, and found her in the living room with that same fake smile, freshly showered, candles burning, music playing like she was expecting someone else. She jumped like a scared cat when I opened the door. Told me she was treating herself to a little self-care, spa day at home. I wanted to believe her. I really tried, but something didn't sit right. The house smelled like cologne that wasn't mine. There were 2 wine glasses in the sink. Her phone was face down on the coffee table, which she never did before unless she was hiding something. I brushed it off like a fool. Told myself I was being paranoid. She was stressed, working long hours. Maybe she just needed space. That's the trick with betrayal. It doesn't scream at you. It whispers, pokes, nudges until one day you wake up and realize you've been living with a stranger. That moment in the hotel made everything snap into focus. All the weird excuses, the late work nights, the new wardrobe she bought last month and said it was for her dental conference in Vegas. The way she started locking her iPad, even though we used to share everything. The sudden change in the way she touched me, less real, more like an obligation. I used to tell myself relationships go through phases. I didn't want to be the guy who couldn't handle a little distance. But standing there, watching her lean in and whisper something into that guy's ear, then laugh like a teenager sneaking out past curfew, I knew. I just knew. When she finally spotted me, it was like a scene from a slow-motion movie. Her head turned, eyes widened, mouth opened just a little like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. The guy next to her turned too, sizing me up like he was expecting some kind of show. I didn't give him the satisfaction. I stood up, walked straight past them like they weren't even there, and out into the street. It was raining, which felt perfect, like the sky had decided to cry for me since I wasn't going to. My hands were still shaking when I got into the car. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't even go home that night. I drove around for hours, ended up in some deadbeat diner 2 towns over, ordered a burger I couldn't eat, and stared out the window like a ghost. The waitress must have asked me if I needed anything 3 times before she gave up. I wasn't there for food. I was there to figure out how a woman who once cried in my arms when her dog died could become this version of herself. Cold. Secretive. Able to sit in a hotel bar with another man and not even flinch when her husband walked in. She didn't even try to lie that night. That was the craziest part. Around 11 p.m., she texted me one line. "Can we talk when you're ready?" No apology. No explanation. Just that. Like we'd had a disagreement over groceries. I stared at that message until the screen dimmed. I didn't reply. The next morning, I came home early, before she could leave. She was in the kitchen, hair still wet from the shower, wearing one of those shirts she always called her lazy day gear. She looked at me like she didn't know which role to play, ashamed wife or defensive liar. I didn't give her time to choose. "So how long?" I asked. She looked down at her coffee like it held the answer. "Marcus, it's not what it looked like." "Don't." Don't say that. I cut her off. I saw you. You were with him. You looked comfortable. There was a long pause. She took a sip of coffee, still avoiding my eyes. It's been a couple of months, she finally said. Her voice was low, like she was embarrassed, but not enough to look sorry. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the anger had nowhere else to go. A couple of months. Right. That's just enough time to forget you have a husband and a kid at home. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said. He was just someone I talked to after work. It started out innocent. Innocent. I took a step toward her. Do you take all your innocent chats to hotel bars and whisper in their ears while stroking their arms? Her face tightened, jaw clenched. You think this is all on me? I blinked. You're seriously going to pull that card? I've been lonely, Marcus, she snapped. You've been working nonstop, always tired, always distracted. You barely look at me unless I remind you. I felt my pulse spike. You're saying this is my fault? You're blaming me for you screwing around behind my back. I'm saying we both stopped trying, she said. I just had the guts to admit it. Guts. That word stuck with me. Like she was proud of what she did. Like it took courage to lie to my face for months. I didn't say another word. I grabbed my keys, walked out, and slammed the door behind me. Not because I didn't have anything left to say, but because I knew if I stayed, I'd say something I couldn't take back. That was the moment the curtain dropped on whatever life we had. The funny thing is, betrayal doesn't feel like an explosion. It feels like a slow leak. A quiet hiss in the dark that eventually drowns you. And I was finally underwater. When I walked back into the house that evening, she was sitting on the couch like nothing happened, wrapped in a blanket with her laptop on her knees. Acting like she was cold or tired or whatever emotion she thought would make her look less like the person who just tore our life apart. The TV was on but muted, some documentary she probably put on for background noise, pretending to focus on anything except what she knew was coming. I didn't say anything at first. I walked past her, straight to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, grabbed the whiskey bottle she always said I drank too much from, and poured a glass halfway to the top. I didn't sip it, I stared at it, just letting the smell fill the air like I needed some anchor to remind me I was still standing in my own house and not some stranger's. She didn't move, just watched me from the living room like she was studying a wild animal through glass, unsure if it would stay calm or tear the place apart. I turned, leaned against the counter, and looked straight at her. So you've been sneaking around for months, and I'm just supposed to take your word for it that it wasn't serious? I asked. She hesitated, then closed her laptop. It's not about him. It never was. That's funny, I said. Because from where I was standing yesterday, it sure looked like it was all about him. I was looking for something, she said, folding her hands in her lap. And I didn't think I'd find it there. It just happened. It just happened, I repeated, feeling the heat build behind my eyes. Is that what you're telling yourself to sleep at night? She shook her head. It wasn't planned. I didn't go out looking for this. We just started talking. He listened. He made me feel seen. That word made me laugh for the first time in days. Not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. Seen? What does that even mean? You think I haven't been here, every day, working my tail off to keep this house running, to keep us above water? You think I did all that so you could feel seen by some guy with hair gel and a leased BMW? I'm not trying to excuse it, she said quickly. I know I messed up, but things between us haven't been good for a long time. And you didn't think maybe we should talk about that before jumping into someone else's bed? I snapped. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked down at her lap like she was searching for words in her own fingers. I didn't know how to bring it up. Every time we talked lately, it turned into an argument or nothing at all. You stopped laughing. You stopped touching me. You stopped acting like we mattered. I stopped. I stepped forward, not yelling but not calm either. Do you hear yourself? You're rewriting everything to make it sound like I pushed you into his arms. I'm not saying that, she said. I'm saying I was hurting too. I felt like we were roommates, not a couple. We've had stress, work, a kid, bills. Welcome to being an adult, I shot back. That doesn't give you a pass to throw everything away. She stood up now, blanket falling off her shoulders. I didn't throw it away. I made a mistake. A huge one. But that doesn't erase everything we've built. You sure? I asked. Because it kind of feels like it does. We stood there in silence, her near the couch, me by the kitchen, like we were on opposite sides of a fence that just appeared out of nowhere. My hand tightened around the glass. I wanted to scream, punch a wall, break something, but none of that would undo what she did. None of it would erase the image of her whispering into that man's ear like I never existed. I set the glass down and walked to the hallway closet. I opened the door, reached up to the top shelf, and pulled down a small wooden box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were old receipts, photos, a few letters, and a folded piece of paper from 2 months ago, the party invitation for a fundraiser she attended alone, the one she said was boring, the one she said ended early. I unfolded it and walked back into the living room. "This," I said, holding it up, "was your first night with him, wasn't it?" She froze. "What? Don't lie to me again," I said. "That was the night you came home late and smelled like perfume that wasn't yours. The night you said you got stuck in traffic, even though I checked and there was none. I found this tucked into your coat pocket, and I kept it, just in case. Tell me the truth." She sat back down slowly. "Yes, that was the first time. Nothing happened that night, not physically, but that's when it started. So you've been building this little secret life while I've been showing up every day, trying to hold things together?" I said. "You know how many times I sat next to you thinking something felt off, and you just smiled and changed the subject?" "I didn't know how to fix it," she whispered. "No, you didn't want to," I said. "You didn't want to do the work. You wanted an escape. And now you want me to believe this was just a slip, just something that happened. You know what? I don't care how it started. What matters is you looked me in the eye every day and chose to keep going." "I know," she said. "I know what I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want honesty between us now." "Honesty?" I scoffed. "A little late for that, don't you think?" I walked out of the room and headed to the garage. Not because I needed air or time to think. I went to get the one thing that would make her understand that the damage was permanent. The small lockbox where I kept our marriage certificate, now about as meaningful to me as a grocery list. I came back into the house with the box in my hands, the same one we used to joke about when we first got married, calling it the archive of love. It was stupid, something we said once while putting our wedding certificate in it along with a few old pictures and trinkets from our honeymoon. Now it just felt heavy and useless. I placed it on the kitchen table without saying anything and opened it slowly, flipping past the other stuff until I pulled out the certificate, still in its clear sleeve like it was something valuable. I held it up between us and let her look at it. "You still want honesty?" I said. "Let's start here. Does this mean anything to you now? Or is it just paper like everything else you've turned into a joke?" She didn't answer right away. She looked at it, her face blank, like she was trying to figure out what expression wouldn't get her yelled at. "I never stopped caring about our marriage," she finally said. "It got complicated, but that doesn't mean I stopped loving you." "Complicated?" I shook my head. "You didn't just break a promise. You walked into another life and didn't think I'd notice. You shared things with someone else that were supposed to be between us. You looked him in the eye and chose him, even if it was for a few hours at a time, and you think love survives that." "I made a mistake," she said again. "No, a mistake is dropping your keys or forgetting to pay a bill. What you did took planning. It took lies. It took choosing silence every day instead of coming to me and saying something was wrong. I didn't want to hurt you." I slammed the paper on the table. "You hurt me the second you let him touch your life. You hurt me when you smiled at me like nothing was going on, when you asked me how my day was while planning your next meeting with him." Her eyes welled up, and she started to walk toward me, arms half raised like she thought we were about to hug it out, like she believed a few tears and soft words would erase what I saw in that hotel. I stepped back before she could touch me. "No," I said. "You don't get to comfort me now. You don't get to be the one who puts me back together when you're the one who broke it all." She nodded slowly, lips tight, swallowing whatever words she wanted to say next. Then she turned and sat down at the table, her hands folded neatly like we were in a counseling session. "I'll answer anything," she said. "You want the truth? I'll give it. No more lies." I stared at her, then pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "How many times?" "5, she said without hesitating. "Twice at his place, once in a hotel, and the other 2, just talking, but it wasn't innocent." "Why him?" I asked. "He made me feel like I wasn't just a mother or a dentist or a wife. He talked to me about stuff I didn't even know I needed to talk about. He saw parts of me I didn't even realize I missed showing. So I was just the utility man," I said. "I kept the house going, paid bills, did school runs, fixed whatever broke, and you needed someone else to feel like a woman." "I didn't say that," she said. "You're twisting it." "No, I'm not twisting anything. You're just mad it sounds ugly out loud." She bit her lip, hard, and then looked up at me again. I didn't expect it to go that far. I thought I'd stop. I thought it would fade. But it didn't. And every time it happened, I hated myself a little more, but it didn't stop me. Did you love him? I asked. She didn't answer. That's a yes, I said, standing back up. I thought I might, she said finally. But then I saw what he was like outside of the fantasy. He's not someone I want a future with. But you were willing to risk ours for him, I said. So it clearly mattered enough. I never wanted to leave you, she said. Even when it was happening, I kept thinking about you. About us. You thought about me while sneaking around? I said. What a lovely gesture. Really makes it all better. Don't mock me, she snapped. I'm not mocking you, I said. I'm making sure you hear how stupid it all sounds when you try to make betrayal sound like an accident. She stood now too, the tension climbing back into her shoulders. So what do you want, Marcus? She asked. You want to punish me forever? You want me to sleep on the floor? You want to scream until your throat's dry? I can take it, but tell me what's next. I want you out, I said. I want you to pack a bag and stay at your sister's until I figure out what to do next. She didn't argue. She didn't cry harder. She just looked at me like something inside her cracked, then turned and walked down the hallway without another word. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of drawers opening and bags unzipping, quiet movements like she didn't want to disturb the mess she made. I didn't follow. I didn't say anything else. I just sat there, staring at the spot where she'd been, holding the marriage certificate that now meant nothing, not because paper changes, but because people do. I gave her 48 hours to clear her head and pack some of her things, enough to stay away for a while. I told her she could come back once I left for work on Monday to grab the rest of her clothes or whatever personal items she didn't want to leave behind. She didn't argue, didn't try to fight back, just nodded and quietly agreed. Maybe she was too drained, or maybe she thought her silence would win her sympathy, but it didn't. I needed space, not another apology. I needed to think clearly without hearing her voice justifying betrayal as confusion. So she left, carrying a suitcase and that same tote bag she used for her yoga classes, the one I now knew was probably filled with a change of clothes every time she met him. I sat alone in the living room that night and went through every corner of the house like I was scanning a crime scene. I wasn't looking for more evidence. I had enough of that. I was clearing out everything that reminded me of the shared life that no longer existed. The wedding photo came off the wall first. The framed beach picture from our anniversary trip went next. Even the kitchen calendar, the one with her handwriting scribbled all over it with appointments and reminders, ended up in the trash. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place where trust had been buried and I was digging through the remains. By Tuesday, I had a plan. I wasn't just going to sit around letting her rewrite the story and walk away with a narrative about loneliness and mixed emotions. If she wanted clarity, I'd give her clarity. And if she thought she could lie her way back into this house and act like nothing happened, I'd make sure she saw just how far I was willing to go to keep that door closed. I made some calls, not to friends or family, but to someone who owed me a favor, a guy I helped out years ago when he was dealing with a business audit. He wasn't the kind of person who needed much explanation, just a task. He worked in tech now, freelance security systems and digital cleanups, the kind of work that required digging through people's phones, emails, calendars, cloud storage. I sent him the hotel name and the date she had been there with him. I told him to find the receipts, any confirmation, anything linking them. I gave him her car's license plate and the rough location of where the guy lived, which I remembered from a listing she once casually showed me. Within 24 hours, he sent me a file that included parking garage camera stills, credit card transaction screenshots, and timestamped entry logs. I didn't even open all of it at first. I just stared at the file on my screen, knowing everything I needed was there. Not for a court, not for some public exposure, but for the one move I still had left to make, the one that would finally strip away her excuse of uncertainty. She texted me 2 days later asking when she could come by to talk. I told her to come over Saturday at noon. I didn't give her a hint of what I had planned. I spent Friday night printing out everything I'd been sent, organizing it by day, highlighting the parts that were impossible to twist or deny. I put it all in a plain folder and placed it on the dining table where we used to eat dinner. She arrived 5 minutes early, hair tied back, no makeup, looking like someone trying to appear broken but calm. She walked in quietly and sat down without asking if it was okay. I just want to talk, she said. No yelling. There won't be yelling, I said, placing the folder in front of her. Just reading. She looked at it, then back at me. What is this? Proof. Since you said you'd answer anything, I wanted to make sure you remember what really happened. No more blurry memories. No more changing the story. She opened it, and her face went pale fast. I didn't say a word while she flipped through it. The screenshots, the date stamps, the hotel bookings under his name. It was all there. I didn't just want the truth. I wanted her to see how pathetic the lie looked next to it. I didn't know you'd go this far, she said after a long silence. You didn't know a lot of things, I said. But now you do. She closed the folder and pushed it back slightly. So what now? You want revenge? You want to post this online? Humiliate me in front of everyone? No, I said. This isn't about the public. This is about you facing what you did without hiding behind confusion. I'm not here to ruin your life. I'm here to take mine back. She sighed, rubbed her eyes, leaned back in the chair. Then say what you want. I already did. I want you gone, I said. This time for good. I'll speak to a lawyer this week. We'll divide things fairly. But you're not stepping back in here and pretending this can be salvaged. Her mouth tightened. And what about our son? You'll see him, I said. But I'll decide how. We'll work that out. But you're not walking back in here like this is your house anymore. She nodded, stood up slowly, and looked around like she was seeing the place for the last time. Then she walked out without saying another word, leaving the folder on the table like it was something toxic she didn't want to touch anymore. It took her a week to ask for a real conversation. Not a short text, not another attempt to show up and talk her way back into comfort, but a serious sit-down where she said we could lay everything out without filters. I told her she could come by Saturday again, but this time not inside. I didn't want her in the house anymore. We sat on the back patio, 2 chairs pulled apart like neighbors avoiding small talk. She brought her coffee, and I brought nothing because I wasn't there to get comfortable. She looked tired. Not in the way people look after a long week, but tired in the eyes, the kind of look someone gets when they've replayed the same mistake in their head too many times and still don't know what to do with it. I didn't feel bad for her. I felt nothing. It wasn't even anger anymore. Just distance. She started first, quietly. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I know I've repeated that too many times already, but I have to say it again because it's the truth. I broke something I can't fix, and I understand that. I let her speak, not because I cared what she had to say, but because I wanted to see if she'd finally drop the performance and just speak like a real person, without trying to twist words into something softer than they were. I've thought about what I did every single night, she continued, and I realized that no explanation makes it right. I didn't fall out of love with you. I didn't stop caring. I just started making decisions that came from a place I didn't understand at the time, and now I can't undo them. I looked at her and waited, and when she didn't add anything else, I finally spoke. So what do you want from me now? She stared at her cup for a long second, then back at me. I just want to know what your plan is. What happens next? For us. For our son. For the house. Everything. My plan is simple, I said. We're getting divorced. I'll keep the house. You'll have your own place. We'll figure out a fair arrangement for our son. And once that's done, we move on. She nodded slowly, like she expected that. Maybe even hoped I'd say it out loud so she wouldn't have to. And what about us? She asked. Not as a couple. As people. Can we be civil? Can we talk without it always being cold? I don't hate you, I said. But I don't trust you either. And without that, we're not anything. We're 2 people raising a kid. That's it. She looked away. I deserve that. This isn't about what you deserve, I said. This is about what I need to stay sane. I gave you everything I had, and you chose to break it behind my back. That changes things. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering who you're texting or what excuse you'll give next time something feels off. I don't blame you, she said. I'm not asking you to blame yourself more than you already do, I said. I just want you to understand this is final. I'm not doing second chances. I don't care how long we were married. I care about how easy it was for you to throw it all away. She nodded again, and we sat in silence for a few minutes, both of us staring at the fence like it held answers. Eventually she stood up, took a deep breath, and looked at me one last time. I really am sorry, she said. Even if it means nothing now. It doesn't mean nothing, I said. But it doesn't fix anything either. She left quietly, not asking for a hug, not trying to explain herself again, just walked through the gate and back to her car. I didn't watch her drive off. I just sat there and finally let out the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding the whole time. The paperwork was finalized quicker than I expected. We didn't drag it through courts or let it get messy with yelling or accusations in front of others. Everything had already been said. The lawyer helped us split what needed splitting, and we both signed the documents without dragging out the process. It was the quietest ending to the loudest betrayal I'd ever experienced. We agreed to a simple custody arrangement, she'd have weekends. I'd have weekdays, school runs stayed on my side, and any holidays would be rotated. We didn't argue about it. Neither of us had the energy to fight anymore. Our son, surprisingly, took it better than I thought he would. At first, he was confused. He asked the usual questions kids ask when they know something's wrong but don't have the words yet to express it. I didn't go into detail. I just told him that his mother and I were going to live in different houses from now on, and that it wasn't about him. It was something between us that couldn't be fixed. He nodded, asked if he could still see both of us, and when I said yes, he went back to his video game like nothing had changed. But I knew it would hit him later, in the quiet moments, in the in-betweens, when routines started to feel unfamiliar. And when that day came, I'd be there to talk it through. I went through every room of the house and rearranged things. I replaced the bed, got rid of the old pictures, changed the curtains, moved the couch. Nothing drastic, but enough to make the space feel like mine. The house needed to stop looking like a place where two people pretended for months that everything was okay. I wanted to walk into the kitchen and not remember the way she leaned against the counter while hiding everything from me. I wanted to sleep without smelling her shampoo on the pillow. So I cleaned, replaced, and shifted until I stopped flinching at every reminder. Friends started reaching out more once they heard about the split. Some offered advice I didn't ask for. Others tried to drag me into distractions I didn't need. A few just listened, which was the only thing that helped. My brother called, not to pry, but to say he was around if I wanted company. He came over one night, brought beers, and we sat in the garage talking about everything except her. At some point he looked at me and said, "You don't look angry anymore. You just look tired." "I am tired," I told him. Not from the breakup. From holding things together while she was tearing them apart. He didn't say anything to that. He just nodded, took a sip, and we let the silence stretch out. That kind of quiet was better than any advice. She didn't try to win me back after that last talk on the patio. No messages, no sudden appearances, no dramatic attempts to reverse things. I think she finally understood that when I'm done, I'm done. And I was. There was no more room in me for her words or her excuses. I had spent enough energy carrying the weight of her decisions, and I wasn't going to carry anything else for her. She came by once more to pick up the last of her things. I stayed in my room. She didn't knock, didn't call out, just took what was hers and left the key on the kitchen counter. 2 weeks after the divorce papers were finalized, I stood in front of the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. Not because I looked broken, but because I looked free. Not healed, not perfect, but free. I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. I didn't have to check over my shoulder or second-guess what was going on behind my back. I was alone, but I was in control again. And that was enough for now. People keep asking me what I'll do next. Am I going to start dating again? Will I ever get married again? I don't know, and I don't care. What I want is peace. What I want is to sleep without pressure in my chest. What I want is to raise my son in a space that's honest and steady. If something else comes along, it'll come. But I'm not chasing anything. I've already rebuilt too much of myself to give it away again without a good reason. This isn't a story about revenge or regret. It's a story about what happens when someone who gave everything gets nothing in return. It's about learning to walk away without shouting, without begging, just walking out the door and choosing to live without lies. I didn't get justice, and I didn't get closure. I got truth. And that's all I needed. That's all I'll ever need.